Good to have you along. At the age of 50, Paul made a bold decision. He sold his house, he sold his car and all his furniture, and he became a digital nomad, traveling full-time with the goal of visiting every UN nation in the world and every state in the USA. He's accomplished a lot of it, and he documents it all on the Radio Vagabond podcast, but he's here visiting Toronto again. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you again. It's been a few years since I was in the studio.
And a lot of miles on you, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Wow. It was back in 2018, and I think it was in the beginning of my journey, 2 years in. And I've been to 124 countries, and I feel I've only just started. In the beginning, in 2016, I thought, let me travel for 2 years, maybe 4 years, and now it's 8, and I've only just started.
Okay, and I saw on your webpage this morning 48 states. What two are you missing?
Alaska and Hawaii.
Oh, that would have been my guess. But those are really two cool states to visit. I mean, they've got a lot going for them over North Dakota. No disrespect to the North Dakotans.
Yeah, and when I went to North Dakota, where people normally go when they've done 49, and they know it in North Dakota.
I see.
When you go into a tourist office in North Dakota and say, this is my last state, they give you a free T-shirt where it says, save the best for last.
I see. Well, good for them.
Funny.
They have a sense of humor.
Yeah, and I was supposed to go to Alaska in September for a travel bloggers conference, but it seems like it's going to be difficult.
To go to Alaska?
Yeah, because a couple of weeks ago I was supposed to go to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot that I had a Syria stamp in my passport. I went on a tourism trip to Syria in May, and then they won't let me in.
Yeah, well, I went with the Pentagon back around the time of Fallujah, if you remember back to when they cleaned out Fallujah during the war.
Yeah.
And I went to Iraq, and I wanted a stamp in my passport, and they said, no, you don't.
You don't want that.
You do not want that, they said. There will be places you wouldn't be able to go.
Yeah, and I should have known, but it was just
you should have known.
Oh my God, it's such a rookie mistake, and the war is not there anymore. There's no ISIS. It's very peaceful. I could walk the streets in the middle of the night of Damascus.
Yeah, but you're dealing with bureaucry.
Yeah, exactly. And half of the group actually were U.S. citizens. So I thought, no, it's not a problem anymore. But I should have just a 2-second Google would have shown me.
Well, I should have known better too, even when I asked. But I asked, and they knew better and protected me by saying we're not putting that in your passport.
Yeah. So I'm probably never going to get what we call an ESTA, the visa waiver program that EU has with the U.S. Because it's in the records now. So I'm applying for a regular visa now. And I thought, well, I'm here in Toronto. I can go and have an interview and explain to them what I do. And then there's just to get a meeting, there's a waiting period of 860 days. So you can have a meeting in 2 years, 2.5 years.
Wow. Okay. And then the day before your meeting, they'll say, oh, well, he quit. So you have to rebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, so I'm talking to Pele Bol. He is the radio vagabond traveling the world. How many nations did you say you've seen?
124.
All right. And, well, let's start with this. Or get to this really quickly. How do you afford to do this?
I'm a digital nomad, so I work as I travel.
Okay.
I'm a podcast producer. So.
Well, and you are part owner of some radio stations. And
and
I kind of knew the answer before I asked the question. But
Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
It's so professional.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and so I own 10% of a company that I co-founded back in the 90s that runs 17 radio stations. I'm not a part of the operations, but every time they have a good year, they send me a little bit of cash, but not enough for me to live off.
Oh, so you have to earn a little bit more money. But,
yes.
Yeah. Because could you make... This is what I find most fascinating. Could you make a living just off putting your podcast up online?
I could, and I'm trying. It generates a little bit, but not enough. So I still have to work. I do public speaking. I produce podcasts for Lego, this little Danish company.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. It's a little Danish company that could?
I started that when I was here the last time in 2018, and they've been very good to me, and it's fascinating work.
Okay. This isn't something everybody can do. Not every job is portable, but finding a way to make a living off a laptop while touring the world, it has a romance to it.
It does. It's definitely not for everybody. Most people, they want and need a home base, but there more and more, especially during the pandemic, more and more became able to work online, and it made my life as a digital nomad easier, because before the pandemic, if I said, can we jump on a Zoom call, they wouldn't know what I was talking about. But now it's just, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, it's no problem. So just ballpark, what does it cost you a month to be able to live like this? I compare what I spent when I had a house, and that was not a big fancy house, to everything before. Not a Toronto house?
No. It was in the countryside of Denmark.
Okay.
So, and everything before food and pleasure, with the mortgage, the insurance, and everything that came with having a house. And if I compare that to what I'm spending now on travel and accommodation, so everything before food and pleasure, I spend around half now.
Wow.
So I can definitely, it's much cheaper than most people think. And
yeah, but I'm trying to drag a number out of you here.
Yeah.
Just ballpark it. I don't,
Yeah, but I guess
this isn't a forensic audit.
No, I guess you want it in Canadian.
I want the CRA, and I want your forms.
Yeah, I guess you want it in Canadian. So
yeah, well, there's that.
There's around 3,000 to 4,000, 3,000
a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus
so
what I eat.
If you could find a way to bring in 40 grand, you could live.
Oh, definitely.
Well, that's take-home pay.
Oh, yeah.
You still get taxed by somebody, or are you being able to avoid that? I see that grin on your face as soon as I ask that question.
Yeah. The rules in Denmark is that when I'm a citizen of Denmark, but I'm not a resident, so I literally don't have an address, and that means I'm just floating outside the system. Obviously, I'm not covered by the famous Danish health insurance, so I need to have my own for that. But, no tax.
So you do have health insurance from somewhere?
I have my private insurance.
Okay, that covers you no matter where you are in the world?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you fell down the steps here when you're leaving the studio and had to go to one of our hospitals here in Toronto, then the taxpayers listening to us now don't have to pay for you.
That's right. I got my own insurance for that. And actually, just a couple of weeks ago, I was had surgery for cataract. And that's quite expensive, but that's all covered for in my insurance.
Okay, because like I said, there is a romance to this. What's the downside? Is there a downside in your view?
It's hard to find a relationship.
Yes.
Because I'm always moving. I'm always leaving soon.
Yeah.
So there's that, but there's a lot of community for nomads, and almost wherever I go, I have friends. I have a ton of friends here, and in fact, in a couple of hours, I'm going on a road trip with a friend of mine that I met on the Nomad cruise. So we're going.
Do you have friends but no deep relationship?
I have a lot of very close friends. And even friends I don't see on a regular basis. I was talking about more like a romantic relationship.
Yes, I understand.
That's harder.
You personify one of the early songs from Bob Dylan. Look out your window, babe, and I'll be gone.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I get a lot if I meet someone and then I say, well, I'm leaving in a couple of weeks. Well, let's just be friends. Yeah.
You haven't met a lot of that. You haven't met that person yet who said, well, can I come?
Yeah, I need to find another nomad.
Yes, so, that's right.
Yeah.
Another person who wants to.
Yeah, but I'm not actually desperate and seeking. But I don't know how we got to talk about this, Jerry.
Well, because everything has a yin and a yang to it. You know, the romance of I just go where I want to go and I live the way I want to live. It's not that simple. I mean, first of all, you have to work. So you wake up in the morning and you might say, well, I'd like to go to Montreal today, but actually what I need to do is buckle down and get this thing done for Lego or whatever for your income. Yeah. And then there is that aspect of relationships. I want to continue to talk to you about this. Okay. It's Palais Beau. He is the Radio Vagabond. You can find his podcast easily enough. Just Google up Radio Vagabond podcast. Fascinating stories there. We'll talk about some of those coming up on the iHeartRadio Talk Network. Good to have you along, and I'm with Pale Beau. He is the Radio Vagabond. He has a podcast. There's many fascinating episodes up there by now. He's been doing it for years. The Radio Vagabond from Denmark travels the world and lets you in on the places that he has seen. We talked about, Pale, about the romance of being able to travel the world, and I think most people, before we talk about some of the places you've been, would think, yeah, I'd love to be able to just travel the world, go wherever I want, but I'm not rich.
No, and a lot of people they think that I won the lottery, but definitely not. I was actually doing a talk at a conference in Denmark at some point, and and everybody said, "Oh, you live the dream life. I wish I could do it." And since okay, how many of you would love to do what? And every hand went up, and then I said, honestly, if you could, because there's always an excuse. No, I can't with my work and all that. I said, if you could, and you were able to work online and you were able to do it, would you be without a home base and travel full-time? And only 2 hands went up.
Sure. I was at a sales conference once. A guy named Zig Ziglar, he kind of invented the, motivational speaker kind of thing. And he walked out on stage and said, how many people want to make more money? We all put our hands up.
Yeah.
How many people want to make some sacrifices to make more money? And a whole bunch of people put their hands down. It's like, you said you want. Mm-hmm. However, there are those people. You said some hands stayed up. Mm-hmm. Right now, listening to you on this radio show, there are some people whose hands are still up. They do want to do it. Yeah. But it's a tremendous step. I mean, at some point, you sold your house, you sold your car, you sold all your furniture.
And my wife.
You sold your wife? What'd you get for a wife?
Much more than I expected.
Well, that got you to your first locations then. Were you in Ukraine when the war broke out?
No, I was there in October last year.
Oh, okay.
So I went.
You mean you went there anyway?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was actually with the same group of people that I went to Syria with, Nomad Mania, like some really hardcore extreme travelers, and they organized the whole thing. And even though going to a country in a full-scale war is not without risk, but they took a lot of precautions, and I felt it was important for me also to go and show the Ukrainian people that we're still with them, and then create some content for the podcast and tell the world about the situation. So yeah, we were all the way in Kharkiv. That's now under attack again, and visited some villages and some of the places that were totally destroyed by the war.
But of course, you could be a radio nomad and not be brave enough to go into a war zone. I mean, there's lots of places to visit.
Yeah, and I don't feel I do a lot of research. I take a lot of precautions, and so I don't feel it was stupid, but it was not without risk. I know.
Yeah. Well, I could say to you, hey, I went to Iraq during the war and make myself sound brave, but you know who went with me? The American military.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I wasn't brave at all. I just went along with the soldiers, and they told me where to go and where not to go.
Yeah.
Very brave to go into a war zone. You went to Kenya and met boys who kill lions with spears. Is that correct?
Yeah, I went into a Maasai village. And they have this random test that they have to go and live with all these other young boys becoming men, and then they end up by killing a lion. Is what he told me.
Not with a gun.
No, not with a gun. With a spear and a knife.
And then you will be a man. Is that the idea?
Then you will be a man.
Or not.
Exactly.
This works out 100% of the time because the ones who come back are men.
Yeah. I read someplace that they don't really do it anymore. But this guy that I spoke to, he
insists that he did it.
He insisted he did it, but
he also insisted he wasn't scared. I didn't believe that part.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you?
I would definitely be scared.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a place you went where you would say to people, don't bother, don't go there?
No, and it's actually interesting because I always get the question, what's your favorite place and what's your least favorite place?
Yes, of course.
For a long time, I said Mauritania, which is a country in the western part of Africa between Morocco and Senegal. And for me, it was totally uninteresting. But to be fair, I only was there for a couple of days, and we spent most of the time driving through the country in the Sahara Desert, trying to avoid camels and cows. And then I spoke to somebody, and he said, what do you mean? I love that country. So some of the places where I thinking, yeah, I don't need to go back. I'm like, maybe I missed something. So I want to go back to the places I love, and I want to go back to the places I didn't love to figure out what I missed.
Yeah. Well, if you go to a place and hook up with somebody that really knows the city and says, never mind what the Chamber of Commerce is telling you, and nothing against the Chamber of Commerce, they have their job to do. Let me show you the city.
Yes.
You'll have a time.
Yeah, exactly. And I did that in Burundi, which is the poorest country in the world, right south of Rwanda in the central part of Africa. Similar size to Rwanda, but so different. Rwanda is the safest country in the world and the cleanest country. It's so clean you won't believe it. And then Burundi, I was the only one with my skin color in that country. I have a feeling. I met no tourists at all. But I hooked up with a local guide that was recommended by a friend of mine, and he showed me around the whole day, and I absolutely love Burundi. It was really an experience being there.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right.
It's good to have the experience where you're the one. You're the other. You're not part of what belongs here. My son was in Africa, and he was taken by some people out to the village where they had grown up, just totally away from civilization. Those places still exist. And some of the little kids rubbed his arm to see if the white came off. Yeah.
All the kids, they wanted to hold my hand when they saw me, and they'd never seen anybody like me before.
Yeah.
And then the guy, he said, where do you want to go for lunch? We've got this fancy hotel over here. I said, no, take me to where you would go for lunch. And then really? It's nothing special? Well, it is to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want to feel what it's like to be a local. I don't want to be just a rich Westerner coming
Sure.
there. Yeah.
No, that's a great tip. A friend of mine did that. He travels as a comic all the time, and we drove into a city, and he said, pull up in front of this service station, his garage. And he walked over to a guy turning a wrench underneath a car, and he comes back and he goes, I know where to have lunch.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Have to ask you this. In fact, people are writing asking this question, and I'm not surprised. You had a goal to go to all 48 states. We'll see if you can make the Alaska, Hawaii. Do you have a goal to see all 10 provinces and the territories?
I definitely want to see more of Canada. I've not been to the big mountains out west.
The Rockies.
Rockies, the Canadian Rockies. I really want to do that. I was in Vancouver 1 week, but it was pouring down rain all the time. So
that's a thing there.
That's what I heard. But I want to go back because people say Toronto is one of my favorite cities in the world, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here. It truly is. And people say if you love Toronto, you're also going to like Vancouver. So, but the rain kind of made it.
I know, but you need to see the prairies because it's so different, and you need to see the East Coast. You need to go to Newfoundland and experience a different culture. Spend some time in Quebec where they don't speak English, which means you got to get out of the cities.
Yeah. And this afternoon, I'm doing this RV trip with my local friend here, and we're heading north to some of the lakes and into the Canadian nature up there.
All right. That is the Radio Vagabond, and that's how you can find him. It's just that simple. Radio Vagabond podcast, and hear his stories from all around the world. Palle Beau, good to see you again.
Good to see you again.
When you wander back into Toronto again, let me know.
Okay, I will.
All right. This is the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
This is always so much fun.
Well, you know what you're doing.